the GAA are set to discuss the issue of cocaine use among players following a Laois club's call for action to be taken to stamp out drug taking in the sport, which then came to national attention when it was brought up in the Seanad. In studio, we still have Máire Treasa Ní Cheallaigh, sports broadcaster and performance psychologist, and Neale Richmond, TD for Fine Gael. On this story, Máire Treasa, when we speak about the cocaine problem, would it be safe to say that this is well and truly a problem that we are seeing in every parish and therefore in every GAA club, at every, not in the sports ground, but among players and, rising right up to inter-county level?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. I mean, I would hate for anyone to think that this is a GAA-specific problem. It isn't. But actually, the GAA are in a great position because out of all organisations on the island of Ireland, they have a prong nearly in every parish, small town, village, whatever city in the country. So they're in a great position to actually spearhead maybe some kind of way to educate people about the damage that cocaine can do to you. And it is on the rise. If you ask any GP, ask any doctor, they will tell you they are seeing more and more people are coming into their offices or their surgeries with the side effects of cocaine use. And that is the thing, it is dangerous.
So what's the link with the GAA and the link with sport in all of this?
I think the link with the GAA is the fact that perhaps people who are administrators, or perhaps they're seeing the side effects as well, and they're seeing, and they're finding out and they're hearing stories about young people in sport, male and female, getting involved in, and it is cocaine that's shooting up rapidly for whatever reason. And we know why. One, it's much more available even than when I was a teenager, for example. And I think we need to acknowledge why people possibly are taking it. Is it because they're bored? Is it mental health issues? For some people it is. But also, let's face it, for some people cocaine is an attractive prospect when you're looking to go into some mind-altering space here, because it's freely available, it is cheap, you don't gain weight in it. In fact, it's an appetite suppressant, and you don't get hungover. It means you can train the next day and you're not having the carb-craving munchies that we'd have after we went on a night out on the Raz. So that's what you're up against. And I think when you're going to acknowledge a problem, you need to understand why, and then you need to educate people, because while people might say, well, you can do all this with it, but you can also die. And people have died immediately after taking a teeny tiny amount, and sometimes people with huge tolerance, and that's the huge danger with it. It is completely unregulated and it is completely dangerous.
Fair enough to say, Neale, that this is something that's probably not unique to GAA. I mean, if we're seeing a proliferation of cocaine use among young people, right up and down the country, they're not just playing GAA, it's probably across all sports, really, this problem, and how to challenge this problem face on.
Absolutely. Look, I'm involved in sport. I'm involved in lots of sports, rugby, hockey, cricket, and it's there, it's prevalent. I can see it. After matches, people are talking about it openly. They have a complete ignorance of the impact of cocaine. People who are younger than me.
And when you're saying people are talking about it openly, like in what way? Like what?
Well, I've overheard conversations with people saying, like, well, we need to get a bag for tonight, or where are we going afterwards? Let's go to someone's house before or after. And it was really interesting the way he said, it's an appetite suppressant. If you're spending a couple of £100 going to a gym to get a six-pack, like a lot of young men are, you're not necessarily going to want to have 10 pints of lager. And if there's an alternative that you don't think has any downsides, and why I think the GAA in particular has such an important role is they've also had great success in terms of concerns about alcohol addiction, in terms of gambling addiction. A very exposed demographic, which is predominantly young men as well as women, but really young men is where we're seeing the huge growth levels. When I was 22, cocaine wasn't available as much as it is now 16 years later. And it's something that is a very real issue, that there's no one easy solution to it. There's no one thing the government can do. Is
more drug testing the answer here?
I think that could be part of it, but I think education is far more important. It's getting into clubs, it's getting into not just inter-county teams, it's getting into the junior B team, the minor team, the underage teams across all sports, and explaining what are the real dangers here, what are you exposing yourself to from a criminality point of view, from a financial risk, the risk of addiction, and how, to be honest, it affects your performance as an athlete as well.
Máire Treasa, do you think there's a reluctance around that? There's a reluctance to deal with this issue?
I'm not sure there's a reluctance. There definitely probably is an ignorance, because there are people possibly in a certain demographic who just haven't been exposed to these kind of drugs. They don't understand them. And therefore, sometimes when you don't understand something, it's very easy to not see it. And maybe until you're kind of in the throes maybe of these groups of young people, then you realise and actually, oh, this is happening. In general, people tend to not know until they hear somebody's been arrested by a Garda or something like that, or they hear of somebody getting very sick. But it's everywhere, and we have to acknowledge this. It is in every town, village in Ireland, in the most rural spot that you can think of, you can access cocaine now, and that has to be addressed. And I don't think, you know, sanctions are the answer. It's definitely education. I think there's lots of people who, if they knew the dangers, they wouldn't be taking it.
Is there an element as well? You know, the GAA have said while any player may be selected for testing, there is particular focus on testing with regard to inter-county players. And we have a responsibility to ensure the players are aware of the Irish anti-doping rules that are in place. Now, we are hearing anecdotally that these, you know, when it comes to testing, that teams will get a couple of weeks' notice that they will be tested post-match. I mean, is that enough of a deterrent?
I'm not sure that's actually true. I've been involved in inter-county teams, and the anti-doping will show up without any warning or anything like that. To be honest, I would be less worried about the inter-county players because they are dope tested. They are like finely oiled machines. They're thoroughbred racehorses. I'm more thinking of average Joe Soap, people like me who are going out, you know, back in the day when I was playing football. It's the club player and those going to gyms. I think they're the ones who possibly we need to be a bit more worried about.